We're being recorded. This is Dan Cornelius with Intertribal Agriculture Council. Welcome to our IAC National Webinar Series. Today's topic is the Agricultural Conservation Easement Program, and we have Nrcs staff from USDA here to join us and present on the easement program. So I'll turn it over to Jerome and Randy.
Thank you, Dan. And thank you for giving us this opportunity to talk about the Agricultural Conservation Easement Program. And thank you all for joining us. My name is Jerome Faulkner. I am with USDA and Nrcs on the Easement Programs Division here in our national headquarters. And with me, as you mentioned, is Randy Epperson, who's also in the Easement Programs Division. And we're going to give you about a 40-minute talk here, and then we'll take questions afterwards. But if you have any questions or clarifications while we're talking, please don't hesitate to speak up. We'll speak up as we're going along. We're going to talk about the Agricultural Conservation Easement Program. First off, I'm going to go to give an overview of the program, and then Randy's going to talk about some specifics on the WRE portion, and then I will return back to talk about specifics under the Ag Land Easement portion, and then we'll have questions and answers. So with that, I will get started here. So the 2014 Agriculture Act of 2014, the 2014 Farm Bill, and that created the Agricultural Conservation Easement Program, which consolidated the purposes and functions of three former long-standing NRCS easement programs. FRPP, which was the Farm and Ranch Lands Protection Program, WRP, which was the Wetlands Reserve Program, and GRP, which was the Grasslands Reserve Program, all got combined into one program, the Agricultural Conservation Easement Program. And so the purposes of our talk today is we wanted to discuss the Agricultural Conservation Easement Program and some of the changes that occurred in that program as a result of combining those three former programs, and how they're applicable to Acep from that 2008 Farm Bill to the changes that occurred in the 2014 Farm Bill. So, as I said, Acep is in the Agriculture Act of 2014. That's the statute that has the law that formed Acep. And from that law, we have developed Acep regulation, and we have posted the interim final rule on www.regulations.gov. And that rule is currently open right now for public comment period until April 28, 2015. And our main point of today's discussion is so that we give a little bit of background about Acep, and so that hopefully you will be able to look at that rule and then and provide any comments that you feel needed. We're using this forum as a way to solicit public comment and to inform you about the program so that you can help us to make the program even better. From that regulation, we have developed Acep policy, which is our program manual for Acep that NRCS uses. This is also available. This is available on the NRCS website at directives.sc.egov.usda.gov, and it's in the Conservation Programs Manual for Part 528 is our Acep program manual, which has all of the details as to how NRCS is using their regulation to implement the program. So the purposes of Acep, as I said before, were to consolidate the purposes and coordinate the functions of the three repealed programs, the Wetlands Reserve Program, the Grassland Reserve Program, and the Farm and Ranch Lands Protection Program. To restore, protect, and enhance wetlands on agricultural land, on eligible land that was from the Wetlands Reserve Program portion to protect the agricultural use, viability, and related conservation values of eligible land by limiting non-agricultural uses that comes from the Farm and Ranch Land Protection Program, repeal from the FRPP program, and to protect grazing uses and related conservation values by restoring and conserving eligible land. And that is from the Grasslands Reserve Program. So in order to do these purposes, Acep is divided into two components, agricultural land easement component and the wetland reserve easement component. Under the agricultural land easement component, it combines the purposes and functions of a FRPP and GRP. Under this component, NRCS provides cost share assistance to eligible entities for the purchase of agricultural land easements on eligible land from eligible owners. Under the wetland reserve easement component, it has the same purposes and functions as WRP had, and NRCS purchases easements directly from eligible landowners through a reserved interest deed in eligible land to restore, protect, and enhance wetlands and associated habitats. So two very different easement components. One is we're providing cost share to entities so that they can purchase the easement, and the other one in RCS is directly purchasing the easement. So we have different enrollment options under the agricultural land easement component, AL component, as we abbreviate it to. We only have the easement enrollment type. It can be a perpetual easement or the maximum duration that's allowed under a state law. This easement is held by an eligible entity and occurs on the eligible land that it occurs on is private land or tribal land. And NRCS does not provide any restoration cost share under ag land easement component. The wetland reserve easement component, the WRE component, you can have an easement, a perpetual easement, a 30-year easement, or the maximum duration allowed under state law, so perpetual maximum duration or a 30-year easement. Or you can have a 30-year contract for acreage owned by an Indian tribe, and that can be for, as it says, for 30 years. Or you can do a grazing reserved right easement, which can be a perpetual or maximum allowed by state law or 30 years. And all of these easements are held by the United States on eligible private or tribal land. And under the WRE component, we do provide restoration cost share in order to restore some of the wetland functions. And we'll, farther along in the presentation, we'll talk more about the ag land easement component and the wetland reserve easement component changes that occurred because of the Farm Bill and that are mentioned in the regulation, an interim final rule. We have under ACEP, there's landowner and entity eligibility and registry requirements for both components. An eligible entity is an agency of any state or local government or Indian tribe. That can be a non-governmental organization for preservation purposes. Eligible entities can be a federally recognized tribe. They must be landowners and entities must be registered in the Farm Service Agency SCIMS registry. This is our USDA customer records system. So must be established in that system. And landowners in ALE and WRE are required to be in compliance with the highly erodible land and wetland conservation compliance portions of the Farm Bill. And this does not apply to eligible entities under the ag land easement component. It only applies to the landowners, not the entity as an easement holder. And there must be a DUNS number and current SAM registry required for WRE landowners operating under the EIN or all eligible entities under the AL component. And this does not apply to landowners under AL. So those are just some general landowner and entity eligibility and registry requirements across all of ACEP. ACEP also has easement plan requirements under the ALE component and WRE component. Under ALE component, an agricultural land easement plan is required for all ACEP agricultural land easements, and it must be completed prior to closing of that easement. And component plans are required if the parcel that is under the easement contains certain land uses. A grassland component management plan is required if the land enrolled is based on the grassland eligibility types. A conservation plan is required if the land contains highly erodible land. A forest land management plan is required if the forest land is greater than 40 acres or 20% of the easement area. Under ACEP WRE, all WRE enrollments must have a wetland reserve easement plan of operation completed on the property. Some of the changes that we've made to ACEP from the programs WRE, WRP, GRP, and FRPP is we've standardized some of our agreement links and extension links to the expiration dates to aid NRCS and participants in tracking our deadlines, executing extensions. It's reducing our de-obligations as a result of agreements expiring. And also we've made it a 12-month standard extension. And we've also got no alternative agreement or extension links or expiration dates are authorized. All participants are subject to the same requirement so that everyone knows up front the terms for those agreements. And so that's just some general ACEP information. And now I'm going to turn it over to Randy Epperson, who is going to talk about changes that are specific to ACEP WRE, Wetland Reserve Easement component, from WRP, the Wetland Reserve Program. Randy?
All right, thank you, Jerome. Appreciate that. As Jerome mentioned at the start, I'm also headquartered here in Washington, D.C. I'm a national easement specialist. Basically, deal with wetland easements. Prior to ACEP Wetland Reserve Easements, I worked almost exclusively with the Wetlands Reserve Program. And speaking of which, the Wetlands Reserve Program, very successful program, actually came out of the 1990 Farm Bill. So WRP had been around a long time when the 2014 Farm Bill repealed WRP, and we have now ACEP WRE, Wetland Reserve Easements. Not really a lot has changed with ACEP WRE from WRP. There are a few statutory changes, and actually I really think the changes that have gone forward and signed into law are some real enhancements, some definite improvements. Although WRP was a very successful program, as I said, from the 1990 Farm Bill. Some of the first projects were piloted in a few select states in 1992. So from 1992 to 2013, WRP was alive and well, and over the course of that time, landowners enrolled over 2.3 million acres in that program. So very successful program, a program that landowners seem to gravitate to and appreciate, and one that has a lot of political support and congressional backing with funding. Okay, just a little bit about the purposes and benefits of wetland reserve easements. A lot of great benefits to restore wetlands, as you probably all realize, providing habitat for fish and wildlife, threatened endangered species, water quality, filtering out sediments, reducing flooding, groundwater recharge, just a whole host of really public benefits that come out of restoring Acep wetland reserve uh, uh, of course, wetland reserve easement option. Uh, and that basically two options perpetual you know, a permanent 30-year easement. What the duration state law private landowners tribal land and as mentioned cost share for that. Another is contract for acreage by Indian uh, that one is uh, two tribal land it runs 30 years. It's contract with if you're familiar with CRP, a 30-year uh, CRP, there isn't any easement file that's registered 30. It's contract, a 30-year contract to restore uh, uh, piece of land. And that, again, that's only available land. another option that an 8 farm so not that long ago. Uh, 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 grazing reserve rights on in the 2000 uh, uh, landowner grazing rights the easement uh, uh, basically purchasing the, the majority of the landowner right, does the rights to recreation the biggest one. Uh, landowners are to the for and fishing, but uh, so there are a few right that the landowner has is in place. Uh, this, this one here on grazing, uh, if they we do develop allow to retain the grazing and then the uh, the would be reduced on that particular option. To have a standalone agreement that that no basically a 10-year arrest rolled into the equip program, the quality incentives so that's if you were interested in doing that. Okay. on 30 tribes are uh, uh, documents that have been